All right, so this is what we created last time. Let's go ahead and press play and see how our character sort of walks around the environment. Very cool. We have a little river here. We haven't set up the issues with collision right now. Our character can walk on water, but we'll fix all that too. But yeah, overall, I mean, for such a simple level that we haven't really gone back in and painted rocks or anything, it's looking pretty cool. So let's add some other settings or play with some of these other lighting or information settings that um, just to kind of so we could see ways of making this more realistic or visually interesting. So if we look at this exponential height fog and we look at this first setting here where it says fog density, let's say we make that 1. You can see that when we press our play our game, we have some pretty dense fog here. We're moving around, we're looking at our environment. And so this could simulate if your game has some sort of it's right before rain or there's like fog or it's a scary game or something. This can add a lot to that. I think by default it's like zero point 0.4 or something. So if we make it 0.5, and so just kind of playing with these the levels here. Actually, I'm going to make mine like zero point 0.3, and that way when we play our game, it won't be so we get a little bit of fog in the distance, which builds realism, but it's not too overwhelming. I'm gonna select my lake here, or river rather, hit F to focus and just kind of bring myself back. There's also a nice something I forgot to mention is we can also set bookmarks because it's easy to get kind of lost inside your Unreal scene here. So up here where your perspective camera is, go ahead and click on that and go to bookmarks here, and it says set bookmarks. And if you hit bookmark, for example, 0 here, and then I kind of go off to the side, and I go back to my perspective here, and I go to bookmarks here, you can see I have a bookmark 0 here, or it's mapped to the number 0. So if you push 0 on your keyboard, hold on, let's click off of that for a second. It should be, there we go. So when I press 0, it brings me back to this bookmark. So it always kind of snapped me back to that, essentially that view, which is good. So that kind of gives us a little bit of easier way to get back to our island. And that's a nice feature of bookmarks. All right, so there's a couple other things we can do. Let's go back up to our exponential height fog. And let's see, we can adjust the color. So if we go to albedo here and we kind of move this around, you can see we're getting more of a pinkish tint. So say you're sort of doing in an alien world here. We can kind of move this down a little bit. Um, and let's see, sky atmosphere here. Again, same sort of thing. You can add a little bit of tint to the atmosphere itself. And let's see, secondary fog data, fog density here. Again, same sort of thing. If we make this, let's say 1, you can see it adds a secondary layer of fog that sits on top of it. I'm going to leave that at 0. And I'm going to move this back to white just because so we can see our scene a little bit better. Let's see some other useful tools. We also have, let's see, this volumetric fog and then scatter distribution. This is how much light gets scattered through these like particles throughout the system. So I usually leave that at 0.2. Let's look at the atmosphere settings. And you can see here, see, we have sky atmosphere ambient. Again, same thing, adjusting the color for that. And I think just kind of playing around with a lot of these settings sort of in a fun way. There's also a, let's see, a distance that we can adjust. Let's go ahead and type distance in here. And that kind of adjusts the distance in which, like our start and end distance for our height of our fog. So we can start it much further away. You can see here, if I play with this, you can see it kind of pushes it back a little bit. So if our start distance is at 0, which is essentially at the front, like the front of the camera, and then this is our end distance. So if we make them both 0, we're just kind of setting it to the default. If we make this like 10, you could see that the end distance is like just cut off immediately. And the further we go out, so let's say 2000, it's pushing it much further out. So it looks like you almost need to get up to 10,000 to get a good distance from the camera, just something like that. And this kind of helps with if you're adjusting things, just sort of playing with how far out do you want the fog to be, right? In your overall scene. And so we'll just leave this at 0. So we're looking at the default. But I do like let's see, 15,000 actually looked pretty good when we were playing with it earlier. I think that looked pretty cool. Another really good one is sky atmosphere here. And inside of here, this is where we can really adjust the way the light and particles appear inside of the atmosphere of the sky, right? So, for example, let's see, there's the absorption scale. The higher we go up, you can see this is absorbing more of the light, so it gets a bit darker. And let's see, the exponential distribution, the more we expand that out, you can see that we're getting more of more particles laid out across our scene, these light particles. And let's see, atmosphere height, if we move this up or down, and we're sort of controlling how high the sky atmosphere goes off of the distance up into the air, right? So the higher we go, the more it gradiates off or up into the sky. And then we could scatter more of that light this way. So this is the way we can adjust it that way. And let's see. Trying to just point out like just basic stuff that we can use really quickly to just build a little bit of atmosphere in our environment without going through every little detail because we're just sort of brushing over um, this. So here's another one, ground radiance. If I bring this all the way down, we're sort of controlling. It's almost like thinking about it, how big is our planet. So the lower you go, the closer you are to the globe almost shrinks, and that's why these clouds are bigger. And the further you go out, you can see you're sort of expanding out your scene. We're getting more clouds and stuff. So we're expanding the size. And then you could also adjust that color. So if we change this, again, just sort of pushing it off so that you can see a little bit better to a pink, you can see that ground radiance is coming up this way. And again, nice touch if you're doing like an alien environment or something. And actually in our exponential height fog, there's one thing that I forgot to measure. And so let's just type in volumetric fog. So what this will do is this will make our fog a little bit more three-dimensional. So if you see I turn that on, and now you can see we're actually really getting that pink. But it'll also, inside of this, here, let's go back up here to our higher level. And make sure this is selected. If you notice, if I hold Control and L, you'll see the way that the light actually interacts with that fog a lot better by having this on. And if you don't like the amount of that, what you can do is the scatter distribution, take that down a little bit. So let's make this 0. And that's the amount of scattering that goes within it. And then you can increase it this way too. And you can see it's sort of increasing. If you look at this is probably a better area to check, but if I go all the way this way, you can see it's increasing that scattering across the surface. So let's take a look at some other settings. And I'm just going to type in, again, same thing, just type in fog here. And then you could see we have fog density here. So if I bring this down, that can bring down a little bit of the density of that fog. So, so if we make this 1 here, if we make it point, it's like a full on, if we make it 0.5, 0.2, so you could play with how high you want that. And the same thing with the fog height fall off. You could see the higher we go, we're sort of like moving it further away. The closer we get, the closer it is to the Earth. So you can see how where it's located height wise. So the fog could be just above the surface. Like, so if you're playing your game and you just want like fog in the sky or something, you could adjust this depending on how far you want the fog in relation to the ground. The last thing we can do is, next I'm going to go in here and select my sky atmosphere here and just sort of, let's see, pull this down a little bit or actually find a nice even point here. Because what I'd like to do is under this SM sky sphere is you'll find your volumetric cloud here. And this is how we can control the clouds that are inside the sky. So if we look at things like layer height, move it up and down, you can control the height of these clouds as they relate to the layer. If you bring the planet radius, essentially this would edit depending on the other setting I showed you before, depending on how the scale, the size of the globe is. Okay, so actually the last thing I want to show you is, let's say you really like this setting, right? Like you've played with your layers here. Let's say you like the height, maybe you don't want the fog density, that density, but you've got it, right? You've got essentially the look you wanted, and you want to copy this from level to level. So instead of going in here and hitting Control C, Control V every time you go to a new level, we can actually create a blueprint. So in my content folder here, maybe I'll just do it. Let's see. I mean, scenes should really be for scenes. Let's go ahead and create a new folder here called blueprints. So new folder, I'm going to call this blueprints. And then I'm going to go inside here. Now I'm going to right click in here and I'm going to create a new blueprint class, and it's going to be of type actor. And I'm going to call this level, well, BP for blueprint, underscore level lighting. And then I'm just going to open this up, and I'm going to leave it not docked for a second. And all I'm going to do in here is I'm going to select all of these lighting components by just holding shift, hitting Command C, and then clicking in here and hitting Command V. And now you can see inside of this blueprint, I have the lighting setup. So I can compile and save this in here. And now if I go to a new scene, or if I make a new level and it's just a empty open world, let's say, and we'll save selected on this one. And inside of my outliner here, if I drag my lighting in into the scene, you can see now I've got those lighting settings, right? And I can go in and tweak them and stuff like that. So we actually have those pieces in there. Now I might be missing a few other things because I'm missing the maybe some of the volumetrics, but let's take a look. Let's see. Billboard. Let's see. Skylight. Yeah, I'm missing a couple of the other components, and that's okay because what I can do is I can go back into the other scene and just drag those in here. So for example, we have our direction light here, our sky atmosphere, and I think I'm missing my volumetric clouds. So let's go back to our other scene, and let's go to level 1, and I won't save this for now, just so I can really show you. So let's grab our volumetric cloud and place that in here. Let's see, unless it's already in here. So let's copy this. Let me see if I select this one more time, copy it, and then paste it. Okay, what I had to do was actually uh, just take my volumetric. I was having the issue with having the volumetric added was what I had to do inside of our scene was, let me close this, compile and save this for a second, was in our scene itself, under the lighting section. Let's make sure this is all visible. Let me undo this for a moment. Sorry, I had to pause the video and see why the volumetric. So I took the volumetric cloud here and I just dragged it out from being a child here. And then I selected all of these, copied them, went back into my BP level lighting, and let's just delete all of this again so you can see that. Let's go to our viewport here, and then I just repasted it under the default scene root, and then that added my volumetric lighting. So now you could see in any scene, even this one, if I go in here and I delete all of the lighting, you can see we see a little bit of the emissiveness from the water. But if I grab my BP level lighting, it actually greatly simplifies my scene because now I just have one actor with all of that lighting information. So this is a good thing, and it's actually good to talk about in portfolio that you build out prefabs, which is like for Unity, but blueprints inside of Unreal for each one of your components to keep your scene clean. And even if I hit Control L now, I click and I hold Control L and I move around, you can see it still works with my scene, right? I could still adjust the lighting, I can make it night, I can make it day. And a lot of times when you find something, you kind of want to stop for a second and just let it process, because the processing of all the real-time lighting stuff takes time. This actually here, this should probably be a little bit lower into the water so it doesn't look like it's a nice, sort of nice thing. Right, I think that's good for this video. We talked a little bit about lighting and volumetrics and stuff like that. We are going to do an entire lesson just where we talk about the lights of lighting inside of Unreal. We'll probably do that inside of an interior scene just so we have a little bit more control instead of a massive environment. But yeah, we're just going to continue on, learn the different parts or tools that exist within Unreal for environment art before we get into talking about actual level design, as mentioned. So I hope this isn't too overwhelming and you're enjoying it.